Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Northeast Iowa and Southeast Minnesota area sales manager Bryan Regennitter joins us for an area update. Hear about farmers' experience with Merschman soybeans, PowerCore Enlist corn hybrids, Merschman wheat, and America's Alfalfa. We chat about some of the challenges farmers face in planting season coming up in his area.
Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Dylan, Lynn, and a special guest, Bryan Regennitter. Bryan Regennitter is an area sales manager for us in Northeast Iowa. Bryan, why don't you tell us just a little bit about where your territory is at, and why don't we start the conversation off with corn. PowerCore corn is something extremely exciting. We talk about it a lot here in Southeast Iowa and some of our, that 111, 112 day, but we do have some earlier offerings and some exciting things going on. Why don't you lead us in a little bit and talk about some exciting things that are going on in your territory about corn?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm cover area 4, which is eastern, northeastern Iowa, and southeastern Minnesota. Things that are pretty exciting in my area this year. The corn, the early season corn showed out real well for us where we had it in some testing. The 2506 C-30, we had that in it was a cooperator plot. It was a first trial plot, but it was unpublished, and it did very well in that plot. It would have been the top spot when considering moisture at 317 bushel the acre. Did very well up there. Kind of raised some eyebrows in the area because we were pretty new in the area up there. So sales are kind of picking up there for that. Around the West Liberty area, we had several trials out there of corn, getting our foot in the door in some places. Went up against a Corteva branded product, corn on corn, 4-year corn on corn, I believe. And so insecticide was put on both, and we were up against a below ground protection product, which of course we did not have that with the PowerCore, but we still came out ahead on that by 19 bushel the acre. So the customer was very satisfied. Obviously lower cost of seed than what he put in, with all the inputs being the same. So extremely satisfied with that.
So Bryan, in your territory, sorry to cut you off there, but in your territory, what maturities are you looking at? What are guys excited about? Is it the yield potential? Is it the trait platform? Is it the Merschman brand? Like what gets guys excited about corn in your territory?
Yeah. So really it's the performance. I think when you're dealing with corn, the traits, obviously most guys are still relying on that above ground protection, but below ground protection has been a little iffy. And the hot spots of our area, I just don't think that there's many traits that can withstand some of the rootworm pressures we see in northeastern Iowa especially. For that reason, we look at performance and we look at pricing, obviously, and the trait package is important. And I think guys, the secondary attraction to the PowerCore is the multiple modes of action with herbicide tolerance. So that's gotten some guys, excited that can do things that maybe they couldn't before. So, yeah.
So you're looking at predominantly like 106 through the 111, 112?
Yeah, we got a lot of guys that'll go up to that 113. And some that'll stretch into 114, but not very often. So 106 to 113 usually catch the majority of my folks. Alfalfa has been very strong in my area this year. Sales are up exponentially. There's several factors that, but hot products, the 428 TQ, America's Alfalfa 428 TQ has been just kind of lights out, and it has been for several years. I mean, it's the industry leader for a conventional style product, and it just very few issues, let alone failures with that product. It's just been so consistent. A lot of excitement around the new 420 LH Roundup Ready. It's the first time we've had that the LH and Roundup Ready together. So there's a lot of excitement around that. We'll have a lot of that out. And then America's Alfalfa has a new Roundup Ready that also looks extremely attractive to a lot of folks, and I think it's going to be a hot seller this year too. So That's in my area. And then of course soybeans. We could go on about soybeans forever, but I think it's important to touch on the highlights. The Cheyennes have been around for a long, long time, and they're still flagship. I mean, very few failures, very few letdowns with that being it has such a great defensive package. So it just has such a high floor that the averages are just extremely impressive.
So let's back up. What has driven the alfalfa sales and the increases that you've seen in your territory?
Yeah, so 2 years ago there was a little bit of shift in the industry. Some players got out of the alfalfa game altogether, which left a void for people for the need for alfalfa in areas, and with our partner from America's Alfalfa, Mitchell Oswald is the rep for that area. He is an incredible resource for us. Such a great knowledge of alfalfa, and so with his help, we've really increased sales in my area a bunch. So yeah,
absolutely. We had a grower coming in yesterday that actually wanted to pick up, or seed 200 and some odd acres of alfalfa. So I think there's going to be a big push for alfalfa this coming year. Have you heard anything from like frost heaving agronomically standpoint? You think we're going to have a big spring coming up for guys to?
Yeah, I do. I think anytime when the soybeans market gets a little bit stagnant, you see more seeding of alfalfa. So yeah, I do expect a heavy alfalfa year this year. But time will tell. I know there's still a lot of cropping decisions that are still not made. So guys are still kind of shifting around, trying to figure out what's going to work best on their farm. So
great. What is bouncing back and forth here, back to the soybean line of things? We got a lot of new options really coming in your maturity portfolio. What excites you for new? What's coming down the pipeline on the soybean side?
Yeah, I mean, for what's available this year, the new 2.3s, or I guess they were new last year, but the Chippewas, they were exciting last year. Had a really good showing in plots, and then we had the seed production, some of the seed production up in my area, and they did it very good in our seed production too. So as far as what's coming down the line, there's all kinds of exciting stuff coming for 26. So we're really looking forward to being able to roll out some of these new products for 26. So very exciting.
A lot of new Peking lines.
Yeah, that was the next thing that I was gonna transition to. In your neck of the woods, are you seeing a big soybean cyst nematode pressures? Are Pekings helping? Are they moving up? Because we've got a lot of new varieties coming up in that Peking range, especially on the earlier side. So I just wanted to hear what you see in your area.
I think there's no one that's not having cyst nematode issues. I think it is industry wide. Cyst nematodes is the kind of the silent robber of soybean yield, and this Peking to be able to mitigate some of that, I think is going to be very important. And then obviously to be able to keep this around a while, we're going to have to make sure that we're rotating and not continuing to plant Peking over and over. So Ben's done a good job in having both Peking and non-Peking options. So I think that's important. So you might start seeing a little bit of some double up in some maturities for that reason, to be able to alternate. But yeah, as far as the number, I think that's still up in the air is what the Peking's going to add. I think, agronomically speaking, anytime you can mitigate a stress, you're gonna increase your top side potential. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did put a lot of thought into that based on Greg Talca's recommendations and some of the other industry guys' recommendations. We can't just flood the entire lineup, even though a lot of the Pekings look really, really solid. The entire lineup can't be Peking. So.
Yeah, and that's something to add too. We got to remember, like for the little listeners too, there's been kind of a yield drag that they call it in the Peking, and that we've seen that kind of go away, and we don't pick anything that's going to be kind of a slouch in the yield that it brings to the table. So.
And conversations I've had with folks too, it's important for our listeners to understand it. I mean, that is a product of the breeders able to uncouple that yield. It's not a marketing play per se. I think some of these companies jumped out really quick to some of these peakings, and we've discussed it before, but I've gotten it where other companies have been touting it for 3 or 4 years and guys just didn't quite see that bump. If you had cyst nematodes, it was phenomenal, but you get them off of that acre where maybe it's not a huge economic threshold, that response went down. But now the breeding process has basically caught up to that uncoupling we're able to do. I mean, the same thing happened when they introduced PI 788. So it's the evolution of traded soybeans that they figure out what's the problem, and then they breed their way out of it. Peakings have come to that fruition, but yeah, not to beat a dead horse here, but I think Bryan, your trade area has to be one of the most exciting from a development standpoint. As we talk to some of the folks that we work with, the Group 2s and Group 3s coming up, you had a tough decision to make on as far as which ones to pick and which ones to get out of the lineup. I think it's just absolutely robust when we talk about some of the issues that you have. Not so much maybe your area with IDC, but white mold for sure. We're finding these issues in these beans that really thrive, but still are holding true to what we want to do, is be able to take a bean north to south, east to west. Bryan talking about the Cheyenne. I mean, that's one that you sell in Minnesota to probably right in your backyard as an early option for some folks. So.
All the way from the northern side of my territory to the southern side of my territory, that bean is everywhere, all over my territory, and it's, like I said, consistent. It always has been. So
I think those are fun to sell. I don't know about your opinion, but yeah, when you can kind of, I don't want to say hit the easy button, but know that if you got to quote unquote bet the farm, you've got the ace of hearts in your back pocket to lay on the table whenever you need it.
Yeah, and I know, we do things a little different at Merschman Seeds. So a lot of times we'll have, turnover of products quickly for obvious reasons from our standpoint. A lot of companies don't do that. So it's some of our new customers, it's a different experience for them, but the trust that they are starting to, my new customers anyway, really starting to understand that, we've had the Apache since 19, and this is going to be the last year for them, and I think they're starting to understand just based off of sales. You can see that they're starting to trust us a little bit, because the sales of the Apaches have transitioned over to the new Osage, and the Apaches have been lights out. And I've threatened Ben with physical violence if he gets rid of that and doesn't have a better bean, and he's it looks like he's answered that call. So.
Yeah, the new Osage is definitely a phenomenal product. It's a pretty product out in the field, and it definitely rings the bell when the combine rolls through the field.
And just the overall placement with that, compared to, not saying that the Apache got specific, but man, I mean, we're not afraid to plant the Osage down here as an early option. So once again, talking about that same kind of mentality of being able to take it anywhere, that Osage definitely fits that mark for sure.
Bryan, what were a couple of the yield limiting factors, some of the stresses that you had in your territory this year? Was there a lot of disease this year? What struggles did farmers face in your past growing season, and what are they doing different, I guess, next year to try to mitigate some of that stuff?
We had late season diseases coming in soybeans, some sudden death, which was a lot scarier than it ended up. It looked a lot worse than it ended up really affecting yield. Some white mold in areas. As far as what we're doing to mitigate it, a lot of the discussion that I'm having with people, because again, there's only so many things that we can control and we can help mitigate. And so a lot of the conversations I'm having is, populations. Populations are an easy, and I say easy, it's a simple way to help mitigate some of the stress. And again, the hardest, it's odd that what I do for a living is move product, and I'm asking them to plant less of the product. It is strange to me how much of a kickback or fight back I get from that. I really want people to to start raising their bottom line. And a real simple way to do that is to plant less. If you're still planting 140, 150,000, there's no need for that. And I don't care what row spacing you're in, from my point of view, in my area, what row spacing you're in. I think that there's definite room for cost savings just on the seed, let alone what I think you're going to see in agronomic benefits from it. As long as we are planting, right? Drills are a different conversation, but if we're planting, we're getting proper seed depth. I think that there's a lot of benefits we can get to lowering our populations, and that's not a new story. We've talked about that many times, but that's one easy thing we can do to help with airflow under the canopy late season to help with some of that disease pressure.
I know that we've had in certain pockets in certain areas, guys can see to the row differences with their Merschman soybeans with our heads up and our seed treatment. Do you have any takeaways or any customers that have seen the same thing, having that heads up with white mold being an issue?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that heads up product is, a lot of people that kind of like the Peking issue. We've had people that have tried it back when it was, something new and didn't see any results. And we could probably have a whole show on probably why that is. But the key part of that is we are talking about a biological product. And if there is no food source, that biology can't flourish. And I think the combination of our heads up with our Trepidity in our starting line seed treatment is what's giving us consistent results with that heads up product.
I couldn't agree more. Start with the base, try to find a bean that's got good white mold protection, and then you put seed treatment on top of it. We actually listened to a webinar last week about heads up, and it's amazing how many people are transitioning that direction. And for the minimal input expense that you have with a product like heads up, it's a very, very good insurance policy. And heads up's moving. I mean, your entire territory, which basically goes down to Interstate 80 as your southern border.
Yeah, county tier south of I-80, but for the most part, yeah.
White mold is an issue from the bottom to the top, isn't it?
100%. Yep. There are pockets every year. Yep.
And it seems like it's increasing. It seems like the footprint is getting bigger. We had white mold as far south as Burlington this year, and if you draw the line all the way across to Champaign County, I mean, it was in Champaign County last year, which is a little bit further south than what we are here. So, it's
a frustrating one because there are only so many things that we have any control over, and even the very best soybeans, as far as rating against white mold, if there's heavy white mold pressure, you're gonna get white mold. I mean, I want to make that very clear, because I'll have guys that'll be like, well, I've had white mold, but this bean, and our ratings are a tad different than some others, but I need something that's the best on white mold, and with the expectation that then they won't have a problem. And it's just a frustrating conversation, not with the grower, but to try to figure out, because there are soil apply fungicides that you can put on. There are timing of fungicide applications, starting at R1 at flowering, trying to mitigate that white mold, disease in several different ways, but it gets very expensive, especially when you're talking about soil apply fungicides. I mean, they are pricey. And I think that if you're in a white mold area and you have white mold, you need to consider row spacing. If you're in 15s, you probably shouldn't be anymore. You probably should be looking at widening your row spacing and then lowering your population. Those two things alone, along with a good seed treatment like the heads up, and then a fungicide application. Those are the things that you can control that are your best shot of helping against that disease.
I absolutely couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and to Brian's point, we've talked about it before with the Hefty Brothers had basically about a 9 or 10 point checklist of what to go through to to basically mitigate that. And you're absolutely correct. If you have a white mold problem and you want to eradicate it, you're going to want to get your checkbook out and be able to spend or have to spend some money at that point. But yeah, it is a problem that we have that if you don't, if you're going to live with it, you're absolutely correct. You have to figure out a way to live with it. But if you want to get rid of it, get ready to get the checkbook out, because it's going to be a little bit cashy, but there is ways to mitigate it. But that's the nice part, and certain diseases that we have, late season Phytophthora, we're hoping that the bean either the field resistance or the gene helps out. But at certain point in late season diseases, you're just kind of at the control of Mother Nature a little bit. I feel like white mold is one of those that we can take the initiative and go on the offensive, especially with just how much of a yield loss that it can be. You definitely want to be on the offensive, because you can have 100% yield loss in spots that where white mold is a real problem.
The part where you're beating your head against the wall is, this might not be the year that you see it. And so then you're spending this money to try to help mitigate a problem that might not exist this year. It just, that's the frustrating part.
It's a constant tug of war, because you want canopy early, so you want your 15s to suppress weeds. You want open airflow in 30-inch rows for white mold. It's a constant tug of war on everything that we're doing when it comes to getting the highest return on investment. A product that we had in the lineup last year was our Chickasaw 2225s, knockdown drag out bean. I mean, one of the highest yielding beans in Bryan, in your area. I mean, what's the highest? Yeah. 100 plus bushel bean if it's put in the right.
We were approaching 120 up in Allison, Iowa with it. So yeah.
But it was an absolute rock star. Wouldn't stand. When you put it on very, very productive dirt, it had a tendency to get a little bit lazy. But it was a white mold tear. So those are the things that our sales managers know and can work with when placing beans in the right position. And that's one of the things we pride ourselves on is our people and their ability to place product. But like that Chickasaw, it had its spot, and white mold was not one of the places that you wanted to put it in, because it didn't have the canopy, or it had an excessive canopy that allowed for that humidity to definitely knock that bean back.
Bryan, our word around the office and in the staff right now is momentum. We feel like we have a lot of momentum going on within our sales footprint, and the things that we have going on with our offerings with corn, soybeans, alfalfa, wheat. What's some highlights in that department, and what do you feel like momentum in your area is?
Everything, and I can say that every facet of what we sell, we have momentum in currently, from products that are outperforming our competitors by 22 bushel. The 2411 C-30 is one of those products that have just been amazing up north. It's done very, very well. On the soybean side, these new Osages look phenomenal, and plots, and then where we had them in seed production, guys were just over the moon with them. So we're really excited about that one. And then, we could, on the alfalfa side, I have guys that have came our way with alfalfa, never used America's alfalfa through us at all, and have had the most tonnage they've ever had on their farm. 428 TQ being one of those products, just with just unbelievable productivity from them. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk just a minute about the winter wheat thing. In my area, which 3 years ago we talked, I would maybe move 160 units of wheat, and that was it. Where this year, I'm approaching a lot more, and there's market for it up here. We have a couple local elevators that are actually calling guys and asking them to grow it. So, and with up by Maquoketa, Iowa, we had a grower do 92 bushel wheat, followed by 48 bushel beans, and he was just, on a normal year he gets 55 bushel beans. So he was just that penciled out so well. He's going to do a bit more this year. So, but yeah, all facets. There's just not one. Momentum is definitely a great way to describe what's happening in Area 4.
No, that's great. And Bryan, we appreciate you taking the time to kind of share what's going on in your area. I've had a couple phone calls from your territory, guys that have never done the winter wheat thing before, wanting a little bit of guidance on green up and things of that nature. It's really fun when it's 4 degrees outside to be getting guys' gears moving and thinking about what's going to be coming in the next 2-3 weeks here. So yeah, the wheat thing is definitely something I'm glad you brought up, because our double crop line is definitely moving further north, and we see that in sales in your area and east of you, across the river from you, and it's definitely a growing market and a good thing for our customers and us here at Merschman Seeds. So without having Joe around, Dylan, I think Lynn tasked you with getting us out of here with a corny joke. So, what do you got?
This is just a fair warning. They were bad. Joe can keep it when he gets back. So, what has more lives than a cat? A frog, because it croaks every day.
That was a good one.
Yeah, so good, right? And then the last one. What did the lunchbox say to the refrigerator? Don't hate me because I'm a little cooler.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I think
you might have a new job.
Yeah, I think you might have to add a title to that business card.
There we go. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in this week, and we hope everybody's staying warm and getting prepped for the 2025 planting season, and we will catch you all next week.